Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez with Trident Concepts, and today I'd like to talk to you about follow-through, defining what follow-through really is. So a lot of times people get wrapped around the axle with what follow-through is. And what follow-through is about, it's about being able to process through one shot and set up for the next shot. Now that's it simply put, if you will, but it's a little bit more complicated than that. What I try to get across to students is that it's not about how much time it takes for you to reset. It's about whether or not you have properly allowed the gun to follow through. So follow through is made up of three things. Number one, when the gun discharges, sights are typically going to move off target. What you're going to have to do, get the gun back to target. Second thing you have to do is you have to reacquire the sights, confirm that they are still in line. The last thing you're going to do is you're going to reset the trigger and get ready for the next shot. So that's the process. That's the sequence that you need to follow. If you go out of that sequence, a lot of times people think they're going to be faster by going out of the sequence. Well, if I reset the trigger in the recoil arc, I'm good to go. And that's not entirely true. It might be true from one vantage point, but this is what we see from a performance vantage point. And that is that shooters typically, because they've reset the trigger, they feel compelled to go ahead and start applying pressure to the trigger before the gun is back to target and before the sights have been confirmed. So what ends up happening is that in their urgency to go ahead and reset the trigger, they end up producing a missed shot. So we want everybody to follow in that sequence. There's another reason why we want them to go in that sequence. Number one, it is a method, it's a technique that we need them to practice over and over and over again so that in the beginning, it may take you this much time. Then as you get a little bit better, that time window starts to shrink to the point where you no longer need to worry about it. In other words, your shot-to-shot recovery time is not going to be dictated by how quickly you can move through gun, sights, and trigger. It's going to be dictated by what the target's actually doing. Is it still a threat? Is it moving? Has it fallen? Has it changed positions? That right there is going to be what dictates your shot-to-shot recovery time, not mechanically how long it takes for you to actually do that. But again, people don't think about that from that perspective because really all they're doing is they're thinking about it from a range perspective. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, but you've got to make sure that that range mentality actually falls in line with reality, and that's where we typically don't see it. So what I try to get people to do is just be patient. Don't be in a rush to process through your follow-through. The thing about follow-through that also kind of freaks me out is that the more attention that you pay to follow-through, the better your shots that you had already fired turn out to be. So there's this heightened sense of awareness of everything that you're doing when you are really focusing on follow-through that has a positive effect on the shots that you're firing. So that's one of those things that just, the more I focus on follow-through, the more attention I'm actually putting towards the shots that I'm firing. So again, focus on allowing the gun to recoil, driving it back to target, reacquiring the sights, and then resetting the trigger. That is follow-through defined. What I also encourage you to improve upon that has to do a lot with what goes on in front of the gun firing. That's going to be your stance, that's going to be your crush grip, that's going to be how you interpret the sights. All of that will help with your follow-through, but really what follow-through defined is allowing the gun to recover back to target, then reacquiring those sights and confirming they're adequate for the shot required, and then resetting the trigger, and then if necessary, starting to apply, trigger management techniques as you go through this. This is a cycle, and this cycle is repeated for every round that you fire. And so the more that you can just approach it from a cycle, the more reliable it's going to be for you under stress. I'm Jeff Gonzalez. Make sure you post any comments down below. Thanks for tuning in.